I would like to introduce our small renewable energy research called This Way Ahead, which is an almost best case scenario until 2050. Maybe if I should show you only one slide, it would be the only one which consists all the information, all the most important information about this project. So all of our calculations were made for a stable population, around 10 million people, with constant living standards and without economic growth, which is a little bit strange in Europe. And we have two publications. This was the first one. It was published in 2011, and the second one was published in 2014. So if afterwards, if you would like to check all the figures and graphs, this will be the possibility. So what was the motivation behind this research? The main motivation is the huge environmental impact of the recent Hungarian energy system, which has a really huge ecological footprint. It's around 55 or 65 or 70% of the whole ecological footprint because of the huge fossil and nuclear ratio and a very small renewable ratio participation. Another characteristic of the Hungarian energy system is the import dependency, which is really huge, more than 80% if we include the nuclear. And why not? Because all the nuclear sources arrive from Russia. And we have a really outdated system, centralized, huge power stations with huge system losses. And then we have a lack of knowledge about sustainable energy, about storage and renewables and such kind of things. Just to show you some details, I choose the National Energy Strategy, which was published in 2012, which has a planning philosophy like this, so to cover the increasing demand. I think this is the biggest problem of the whole strategy, because this is a strategy without real attempt to decrease the ecological footprint of the system, to decrease the import dependency, and to influence the growing tendencies in the consumption. A very interesting sign that I have checked all the text, and the ambient heat, which could be, I think it's a very important energy source in the future. It's absolutely missing from the text. And one more thing, I choose two interesting sentences from the strategy. I would like to read up. The other key component to achieve the 100 renewable scenario is a 30% decrease in primary energy demand, which could completely redeem the nuclear energy by 2050. Sounds good. Next sentence. In our opinion, the 100% renewable concept is contrary to the general philosophy of renewable energy production. I really don't understand this approach. So this is the reason that we tried to create another strategy. And another Another issue is the background studies focusing on, for example, on renewable energy possibilities. This table is from the paper of the Renewable Energy Subcommittee of the Academy of Science, published a little bit more than 10 years ago. And as you see, there are excluded areas from the wind energy point of view, and there are the territories, and then here you can see a simple addition of the territories. And in the text you can find two interesting sentences. There are minor overlaps amongst the above mentioned items. There are, however, ignored areas like airports, telecommunication towers, standalone buildings as well, which counterbalance those overlaps. For a geographer, it seems again a little bit strange, because we have a technology, we have a method called GIS, and these kind of overlaps and such kind of things could be handled with this technology, this methodology. And there are other problems in this table as well. There are confusions in nature and landscape protection categories, but I will tell you something about a little bit later about this. So, as for the motivation, we had a research interest because of the inappropriate official Hungarian energy strategy and because of the inappropriate background studies. And we had also an educational interest because at the ELTE University we have some energy geography courses dealing with sustainable energy management and energy planning. So it was a good possibility for the students to join to this research. What was the research question of this research and education project? Would it be possible to create a 100 renewable energy system in Hungary? To answer this question, we used computer-based analysis, and the approach was definitely a multidisciplinary approach. We invited several experts from different kind of research areas to cooperate with us. What are the main elements? The first one is the sustainable utilization of renewable sources. In our calculation, we have only 300 petajoule sustainable energy potential, but the National Energy Strategy has a plan to increase the energy consumption by 2030 to more than 1,000 petajoule. So it's a little bit, so it's too big difference. So the 1,150 petajoule energy consumption is not possible to cover with sustainable sources. So what do we need to do? We need to reduce the consumption with efficiency and sufficiency measures together. And then we need to use the cross-sectoral interconnections, because the energy sector is just one part of this huge environmental management system. This is the energy chain from the primary sources to the secondary sources and to the energy services, but this is not the end of the story, because we use the energy services because of our mind, because of our concept of well-being. So we have a lifestyle. which is very, very important. And which is very far from the simple technical approach. So we need to involve somehow the social science as well. And we also need to involve the waste management, the building and transportation sciences, if we would like to create a real sustainable energy concept. And the whole system is somehow embedded in a geographical area, so we need to use the geography and we need to use the methodology of the geography. And of course, we need to involve the economics as well and the ecology. So this is the reason that in our research we had a lot of expert fields. This is the list of the experts. Most of the participants were geographers, as you can see. And in the first version there were 23 authors. In the second version we had a little bit less. But we invited students as well from different universities. What were the main steps? In the first steps we had to make new calculations for renewable energy possibilities. And in the second step we had to create the scenario, and then in the third step we had to check the system. And we cooperated with the Inforce Europe, which is an international NGO. It means the International Network for Sustainable Energy. So I would like to show you one example. How did we calculate the renewable energy potentials? The example will be the wind energy. Firstly, we had to consider the legal limitations. In Hungary we had two papers. One of them was published by the Environmental Ministry, and the other one was published by the National Housing and Construction Office, and they consisted a list of the excluded areas, as you can see here. And then we made a lot of maps of these excluded areas. These are the protected landscapes and the environmental sensitive areas and so on. And then in the last step we merge all of these excluded areas, and we had such kind of maps with the possible areas for wind energy applications. We made I think 13 such kind of surveys for most of the Hungarian counties. And the final result about the wind energy, we have only 6% which is not excluded, so which is possible for wind energy in Hungary. And then I must say that it's we have a new regulation, and this new regulation is so strict that we have basically 0 square kilometers right now. So go back to this research. So it is almost 5,040 square kilometers, which is possible to create almost 50,000 megawatt wind turbine, which has a really huge energy yield, which should have, if you compare to the recent electricity consumption, it is much higher. But we know that it's just a theoretical figure, so we need to calculate a more practical figure. So we calculated the social, economical, renewable potentials, and with the a methodology of so we trying to find a region with outstanding performance in the wind and PV or biomass, and we calculated specific indicators like capacity per inhabitants or capacity per square kilometers, and we try to apply the resulted figures for the Hungarian conditions, and then finally we used corrections with the economic potential. Well, I don't really want to go into details, so this is the wind energy potential. You can see that the region was East Germany with really outstanding performance, because they have almost 60,000 megawatt wind energy. So we believe that it can be achievable potential for Hungary as well, but it's really a huge number if we compare to the Hungarian reality. So if we, when we made the indicators, the final result was around 10,000 megawatt, which is socio-economical potential. And we made all the calculations for all the renewable energy sources, and then the final result was this very low energy, 300 petajoule per year, which is really small amount of energy if you compare to the recent Hungarian energy consumption. So we had to deal with the efficiency and sufficiency potentials as well. We made desktop studies, and we tried to involve several experts from different areas. We had architects, we had engineers from different sectors. And then we created a lot of scenarios. This is a general view of the production activities in this concept. So as you can see, the production is more or less stable in this concept, but if we look at the building for the heated floor space, we tried to consider the realities, which means that in the heated floor space was growing in the past, and maybe it will growing in the future as well. So we calculated a growing heated floor space, but the heating efficiency will be higher. It means that we calculated a factor 4 heating efficiency. And we have some figures for the transportation as well. This is the activity of the personal transportation. This is the figures from the year 2000, and then you can see this huge increasing in the car sector, and then in our concept we would like to decrease the car usage, and in our concept we prefer the train transportation and the community transportation possibilities. And as for the energy efficiency, we used more or less factor 2 efficiency. And the final graphs The primary energy supply will be changed completely in this concept. We would like to phase out the nuclear as soon as possible, and of course the fossil fuels. And in our calculation, it would be possible to reach the complete phase out by 2040. And we need to increase the renewable energy possibilities. And this is the final energy mix with the real big wind and biogas portion, and a lot of ambient heat and sustainable solid biomass part. So it's a kind of really a diverse energy source. So the main outcomes in our calculations, according to our calculations, it is possible to phasing out the fossil and nuclear sources if we have a new energy policy and the energy planning is really a holistic, and if we can cooperate somehow in the future, and if the energy engineering training will be developed somehow. So this is the main outcomes of this research. Thank you.